Despite his superstar status, the singer was incredibly down to earth, never letting go of the Rastafarian beliefs that he had grown up with. So, who was Bob Marley, and why did the pop culture icon become an almost mythical figure of rebellion in his lifetime? Join us as we explore the journey of the original soul rebel, whose words continue to inspire and encourage millions around the world today. His mother was just 18 years old and still figuring out her own life when she was shocked at the news that she was pregnant. And soon enough, Bob Marley was born on February 6, 1945, to Norval Marley and Cedella Booker. Looking back at it, this date should have been declared a global holiday celebrating the life of the reggae star. Growing up in 9 Miles, a tiny mountain village in St. Anne Parish, Bob was immersed in the rich tradition of African storytelling. These talks, mixed with the rhythms of rural life, later flavored his soulful music and were like Netflix before Netflix was a thing. Bob's father, Norval, was trying to provide for his wife, but eventually Norval and Cedella were married in 1945, despite their families thinking it was a terrible idea. That didn't stop them from going ahead, and in a twist of fate, giving birth to one of the greatest musicians ever. His father was mostly absent during his childhood, and the last time they saw each other, Bob was just 5. Norval took him to Kingston to live with relatives and go to school. However, Cedella soon found out that instead of attending classes, Bob was hiding out with an elderly couple. She drove all the way there, picked him up, and brought him back to 9 Miles to pursue a proper education. In the late 1950s, teenage Bob settled in Trenchtown, a gritty neighborhood where dodging trouble was a daily routine. He moved from St. Anne to Kingston, Jamaica's bustling capital. His run-ins with the locals, though, earned him the nickname Tough Gong because Mr. Badass was already taken. It was here that Bob's musical genius really started to shine. Despite his rough exterior, Trenchtown was bursting with cultural energy. The singer could never forget about his hometown and even paid tribute to the spirit and resilience of his community in timeless songs like Trenchtown Rock and Trenchtown in 1983. In the early 60s, Jamaica's music scene was electrified by the emergence of ska, a vibrant genre blending American soul and R&B with a funky offbeat rhythm. This new sound captivated the youth in the ghettos, including a young Bob Marley. For many, music was more than a pastime. It was their escape route from the streets to stardom. At the age of 16, Bob met Desmond Dekker, who later became famous for his hit Israelites in 1969. Dekker introduced Bob to Jimmy Cliff, an emerging star who would later gain legendary status with the film The Harder They Come. Cliff connected Bob with producer Leslie Kong, setting the stage for Bob's early recordings. In 1962, Bob recorded his debut single, Judge Not, with Kong, followed by tracks like Terror and a cover of Claude Gray's One More Cup of Coffee. These early efforts, however, failed to achieve commercial success, earning Bob a meager sum of just over $20, a small amount even then. This kind of exploitation was common in Jamaica's nascent music industry, but Bob was undeterred. Bob famously predicted to Kong that his music would one day be valuable, though Kong wouldn't live to see it. In a twist of fate, Leslie Kong died of a heart attack at 37 after releasing a best-of compilation of the Wailers against their wishes. Perhaps he should have heeded Bob's prophetic words. Jamaica's evolving music scene provided opportunities for young musicians. Bob Marley's journey was marked by encounters with influential figures like Desmond Dekker and Jimmy Cliff. Dekker's introduction led Bob to Cliff, who then facilitated his connection with Leslie Kong, propelling Bob into the recording studio. Despite the initial lack of success and financial reward, Bob's early recordings laid the groundwork for his future achievements. His resilience in the face of industry exploitation demonstrated his unwavering commitment to his musical vision, even when immediate success seemed elusive. Bob Marley's early career, defined by his encounters and struggles, set the stage for his eventual rise to legendary status. In 1963, Bob Marley and his partner in crime, Bunny Wailer, hit up vocal classes with Joe Higgs, the maestro of Trenchtown. Higgs was like their musical Yoda, guiding them into forming the Wailing Wailers alongside Peter Tosh. Their squad initially included Junior Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith. but those three bailed faster than a cat from a bath, and thus the legendary tale of Bob Marley and the Wailers took its first steps. Teaming up with Clements, Sir Coxsone Dodd, a big shot in Jamaican music, Bob, Bunny, and Peter scored a gig at Studio One, Dodd's label known for throwing wild sound system parties. Their tunes, influenced by Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, hit close to home with the struggles of Jamaica's streets, epitomized by their breakout hit Simmer Down, a musical warning to rowdy youth. Bob didn't stop there. He kept churning out hits like Rude Boy, I'm Still Waiting, and an early version of One Love, which the BBC later crowned Song of the Century. As the 1960s rolled on and reggae started to groove its way into the scene, Coxsone was stuck in the past, with reggae and Rastafarian vibes taking over. The Wailers knew it was time to ditch Studio One. Meanwhile, in 1966, Bob's mom took off to Delaware, USA, and Bob tagged along after marrying Rita Anderson. There he traded in his dreadlocks for a lab coat, working as a lab assistant at DuPont, and on a Chrysler assembly line under the alias Donald Marley. So, next time you feel bad about your side hustle, just remember, even the reggae star had to clock in at the day job. While Bob was off doing his thing, Jamaica was having some serious moments that would later make it into his highlight reel. In 1966, Emperor Haile Selassie I swung by Jamaica, and it was kind of a big deal. His visit had Bob and Rita Marley feeling all sorts of inspired. Selassie was like the Oprah of spirituality, handing out revelation moments left and right. Bob was so moved that he fully embraced the Rastafarian faith, complete with growing his iconic dreadlocks. It was a hair-raising spiritual journey, but back in Jamaica, Bob and the Wailers were starting their own label and record shop, Wailin' Solemn. It was literally in front of Bob's aunt's house in Trenchtown, because why not? They had dropped some sick singles, but running a startup wasn't easy, especially when your budget is smaller than your aunt's patience for late-night jam sessions. So, Wailin' Solemn waved goodbye to each other in 1968. The early 1970s were bad for Jamaica. Unemployment, food shortages, and political drama everywhere. Bob turned all that chaos into killer lyrics, and his songs became a reflection on Jamaica's social issues, but with a reggae beat. Bob and the gang were practically the pioneers of roots reggae. They dropped the album Soul Rebels in 1970, which was basically the Wailers' way of saying that they were here to shake things up. But their partnership with Perry hit a sour note when they realized he was pocketing all the cash from their album sales. In 1971, Bob jetted off to Sweden to work on a movie soundtrack with Johnny Nash. That gig scored him a contract with Nash's label, CBS Records. By early 1972, the Wailers were in London promoting their single Reggae on Broadway. But CBS was like, meh, we'll pass, leaving him high and dry, sitting in London. Then came the plot twist of all plot twists. During a casual drop-in at the London offices of Island Records, Bob bumped into Chris Blackwell, the label's founder. Instead of just asking for some pocket change to record a single, Bob was encouraged to go all out and make a whole album. And the rest, as they say, is reggae history. Blackwell advanced them £4,000 to make the entire thing happen. This was a massive amount of money for a Jamaican band at the time, and this move would prove pivotal in launching Bob Marley and the Wailers to international fame. When Jimmy Cliff left Island Records, founder Chris Blackwell saw Bob Marley as the perfect artist to take his place and capture an audience already tuned into rock music. Blackwell was dealing with rock music, which was really rebel music, and he felt that would be the way to capture Jamaican music. But he needed someone who could be that image. And when Bob walked in, he was everything that Blackwell needed. Despite their disrespectful and rebellious reputation, the Wailers returned to Kingston and delivered their Catch a Fire album in April 1973, which garnered extensive international media attention. Tours in Britain and the US quickly followed, transforming Bob Marley's life forever. Bunny Wailer decided to skip the US leg of the Catch a Fire tour, leaving a Wailer-shaped hole in the lineup. So, who stepped in to save the day? None other than their mentor, Joe Higgs. The understudy turned star took the stage alongside Bob and the gang. Their US tour included a gig opening for a young Bruce Springsteen in the Big Apple. They also toured with Sly and the Family Stone, the Kings of Funk. However, their electrifying performances stole the spotlight, and their contracts were cut as soon as possible. After rocking the stage across the United States, the Wailers hit the studio to whip up their second album for Island Records, Burnin', and released it in October 1973. This album was a game changer and featured some of his greatest hits. Eric Clapton decided to jump on the Marley bandwagon and covered one of his songs. Next thing you know, it's topping the Billboard Hot 100 in 1974, putting Bob Marley on the global map as he raised the reggae revolution. Fast forward to 1978 and the singer was living his best life. He took his first trip to Africa, soaking up the Rastafarian culture in Kenya and Ethiopia. Here, he hung out in Shashamane, this Rastafarian oasis set up by Emperor Haile Selassie I. He explored Addis Ababa and soaked in the ancient history like a true culture vulture. Meanwhile, back on the road, Bob and the crew dropped their second live album, Babylon by Bus, capturing their European and American tours. Then in '79, they took their show to Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, where they got the royal treatment with a traditional Maori welcome. And guess what? In April 1980, the singer and his band members got a special invite from the president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe. He asked them to perform at the country's official independence ceremony. The band knew this was a huge deal, and they pulled up dressed to impress. This concert cemented Marley's place as a symbol of unity across the African diaspora and put reggae in the spotlight as a voice for freedom. Bob Marley and the Wailers geared up for a big concert in Zimbabwe, but they had no clue the gig was meant for important officials and members of the government. When they hit the stage at the Rufaro Sports Stadium, chaos erupted outside. Thousands of eager Zimbabweans broke through the gates, desperate to catch a glimpse of the guys who were fueling their fight for freedom. Tear gas filled the air, forcing the band to leave for their own safety, but Bob wasn't having it. He marched right back on the stage and sang Zimbabwe. The next night, they made it up to the fans with a free concert for 80,000 people. Fast forward to the spring of summer 1980, and Bob Marley and the Wailers were taking Europe by storm. They broke attendance records everywhere, but Milan, Italy stole the show with a jaw-dropping 110,000 fans packed into the stadium. The energy in that crowd was off the charts, and they knew they were unstoppable. After that, they headed back to America for the Uprising Tour. They kicked things off in Boston, then hit the Big Apple for 2 sold-out nights at Madison Square Garden. Sharing the stage with Curtis Blow and the Commodores, they made it a concert for the ages. But the ride came to a bittersweet end at Pittsburgh's Stanley Theater. Just 2 days after that epic show, Bob was hit with devastating news. The cancer that had begun to grow in his toe 3 years earlier had spread. He fought like a champ for 8 months, even jetting off to Germany for treatment, but sadly, on May 11, 1981, the music world lost the legend. Even after Tuff Gong passed away, his impact only grew stronger, like a reggae beat that just keeps on giving. His state funeral was a massive affair. Imagine prime ministers, dignitaries, and pretty much everyone who was anyone showing up. Hundreds of thousands of people were out on the streets that day, paying their respects as his procession made its way from Kingston back to his roots in 9 Miles. In April 1981, Jamaica awarded him with the prestigious Order of Merit, an award that proved just how much he had done for the country's cultural soul. Fast forward 40 years since Marley left his followers, his music is still blasting out loud and clear. It's a playlist of life's highs and lows, a testament to hope, change, and growth. His reach has been global, and his influence transcends any borders and languages. From Rastafarians to rockers, this universal message speaks to everyone. For achieving so much, he was awarded a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2001. Sure, he never got a Grammy nod while he was alive, but better late than never, right? The singer's rebellious streak wasn't just for show, it had a real purpose. He wasn't afraid to call out the world on everything happening in it and spread a message of hope and unity. And you know what? That message still hits home today, loud and clear. What do you think about Bob Marley's journey to becoming a soul rebel? Let us know in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on.